Hi folks, I'm Bob Sunday from Taos Stove. Today we're going to burn what I call the low pressure stove. It is a low pressure top burner. It's a completely enclosed stove. Has a thumb screw in the top to seal it up once you've filled it with alcohol. And as it warms up, it builds pressure inside the body, and it also has a chimney inside it, so it makes the fumes come up around the perimeter and come out of the jets, and that's where it lights and blooms. It's a little stove. It does a great job. It's super light. Has a number of ways to be able to use it. When I sell these as singles, they will come with a small riser ring which will fit in the top of this stove. And it's very, very good stove for using a beer can pot on. It'll center a beer can pot, sit there, and it holds it really well. When I'm using larger pots, the riser ring is a little bit too small to really support a large pot like a grease pot. And in that situation, when you buy the kit for this stove, you can buy a folding pot stand that'll hold a larger pot. I know it doesn't look like it's folding, but basically this is what it looks like when it comes to you. It'll be folded up and in the case. You can open it up just like that. One of the legs is cut off short. You slide that into the side of the long leg, push it together, and you got a 3-point pot stand. Pretty sturdy. You can use it as I have it set up with the stove today, and you can also turn it up like that and it's still a 3-point. It'll work either way. And sometimes when I'm in a situation where I think I'm going to want to move the stove while it's burning, I'll set it up this way, put the pan in there, and then if I have to move it, I can reach over here and I can move the whole thing around. Just really it's your preference of what you want to do. Today we'll burn it standing on the 3 legs. This is a 2-inch tall pot stand, which is for a different stove. This stove works really well with a 2.5-inch pot stand. And as with all my stoves that need to be primed on the outside, I use a primer pan instead of the wick wrapped around the outside of the stove. And as I've said before, I have nothing against the folks that use wick on the outside of their stoves to prime them. This is just a real personal choice of mine. I just get affected from things like alcohol getting it on me. I've been around finishes and all that kind of material for 38 years, and I'm just try to keep myself out of it as much as I can. So I decided in my designs that I would use a primer pan instead of the wick. But I think either one of them works fine. I just think this is a little bit healthier on the body. Okay, let's put some alcohol in this. We'll use 1 ounce of alcohol today. And what I want to show you is there's a thumb screw in the top of this stove. And the first part of your filling procedure is to take that thumb screw out. Set it down. Put 1 ounce of alcohol in it. It loads pretty fast. It's got a threaded rivet in the top that is a fairly good size hole, and it'll doesn't take long to put 1 ounce of alcohol into it. And again, this is a stove that you have to prime, so after I've filled it, I'm going to put my thumb screw back in. One thing about this stove, even if you're out in the woods, hey, guess what? You can lose the thumb screw, things like that. If you lose it, you can still use it. You got a penny in your pocket. This is patterned after the old penny stove they used on the Appalachian Trail. Or you can put a rock over it. It'll still work. So if you lose your thumb screw, you still got a stove. You're not going to go sit there and not have some heat. All right, so let's put that in our primer pan. And what I do is I load the primer pan, but I also drip alcohol around the perimeter so that the whole stove lights when I light it. Now if you're going to use this, place it on there before you light your fire. Matter of fact, I'd suggest you put any pot stands on the stove before you light the fire, and you're not sticking your hand in the flames, because when it blooms out of the top here, it throws a fairly good wide flame pattern. Now, sometimes you just don't get enough alcohol on the stove to get it to bloom the first time. If you have that happen, let it go out, let it cool a little bit, and definitely check it. Universal way to check stoves: take your hand, put it over top, and just kind of bring it down, and you'll feel the heat burning, and then you know it's burning. But check it. Don't go spraying a bunch of alcohol all over it while it's burning. It's just going to turn into on the ground, turn into a little torch. All right. So it takes a little bit. We'll let it bloom, and there we go. And actually, after the bloom, we're going to go for a boil time and a continuous burn time today. So right now we're bloomed. We'll start the timer. As you can see, we got a bloom going. We'll bring that in there, and I'm going to use a grease pot today with 2 cups of water in it. It's fairly cold water. This water comes out of my cistern. So the cistern's an above ground cistern, so whatever it is outside, pretty much that's the temperature of the water. Sometimes in the winter the water's down to 30 degrees, and there's even a big old block of ice in the cistern. So we'll just let that go and see how long it takes to get a boil, and then how long it will burn for on an ounce of alcohol for us. And this is the thing I suggest to anybody buying my stoves, is when you get them, get it out of the box, play with it, mess with it, make sure you know how to put it into the kit. If you bought a kit, see how the parts all go. Any problems, I'm here. You can email me, you can call me, never a problem. But play with it. Burn it a few times and cook something in your house or at home. Go outside and cook. It doesn't really matter. Just go out there and do it before you're on the trail trying to make it work. Learn what it'll do and whatever you have to do to get that stove to do what you want it to do. It's a great beginner stove. And it'll last, I hope, most of your life. I try to build my stoves fairly heavy. They're not the lightest stoves out there. Most of my stoves have 3 walls, where some stoves are only 2 wall. Some are single wall cans. But I just, to me, the 1 or 2 grams really doesn't matter a lot. I know there are people that count their grams, and if you count your grams, I hope you find one that's light enough for you. But I think you might want to try this, because I just don't think it's heavy enough to make a difference. So let's let her burn. I'm going to turn the lights down just so you can see the pattern of the flame under the stove. And you can see, being a top burner, not a side burner, the flame ring itself is much smaller. And that's what lets this stove do a pretty good job using it with the beer can pot, because it's more centered. It doesn't blow the flame out and then be outside the stove. It actually gets the heat to the bottom of it. Yeah, we're at about 4 minutes. That's pretty good. Just starting to hear a little bit of water. Another good thing about burning your stove at home before you go out on the trail is that you can put an ounce of alcohol in it. You can see how long it takes to burn, how long it takes to do the kind of things that you want to do. And then when you're out on the trail, it'll let you adjust how much alcohol you're using. You know, you don't have to put an ounce in the stove to make it. If it takes a ½ ounce and the timing's right to boil what you want to boil 2 cups of water to throw in a bag of dehydrated food, then only put a half an ounce in there. Then you don't either have to let it burn off, because a stove like this is not an easy stove to reclaim the alcohol out of. So my tendency is to say, learn how much alcohol it takes to do the time you want to do. And, you know, and always give it a little bit more. Things are going to change. I'll apologize if on the film today you hear a lot of sound going on. We're up in the high desert in New Mexico, and it just happens to be the start of spring. And we just happen to have one of those days today where we're getting 65-mile-an-hour gusts, which makes it a great day to be inside doing videos about your stove. You don't want to be outside. Alright, pot's giving us some sound. Let's see. Yeah, it's starting. There we go. I think. Yep, there we go. We got a boil. And that's at 7 minutes 26 seconds. So 7.5 minutes to bring 2 cups to a boil. You know, that's the kind of thing when you do it in the house and you're going to see, okay, in here it takes 7.5 minutes. When you're out on the trail, hey, it may take 8.5 minutes. You know, it depends on where you are, what elevation you're at. Like I said, up here on the high desert, we're out here at 7,000 feet. You know, and our water boils at 193 degrees, not 212 at 7,000 feet. So it may get a little quicker boil, but then again, you get up at 14,000 feet on some of our high peaks up here, twice the height of what I am right now. Hey, it can totally change the numbers. So you got to think about where you're going to be and what you want to do. Again, using a windscreen around it, which we don't use here because I want you to see things burning. A windscreen will totally change the dynamics of your stove depending on how close you run it around the pot. I am not one of the folks that likes to put my windscreens tight around my pots. What I found is that a lot of times it creates too much heat in the stove itself. Burns hotter, but at the same time you don't get the fuel efficiency out of it. It's gassing off so hard that you're basically wasting it. So you know, not only play with your stove, but take all the components. You got a windscreen, play with it and see what it does for you. I have some stoves that I especially my baking stoves, I'll mess with the windscreen a little bit and adjust it. But usually I run them fairly open. To me, they're there to get the wind off the flame, and they're not there to be part of the heat generating. Looks like we're just about getting ready for it to flame out, and I believe we are out. Alright, so just shy of 12 minutes. We were at about 7:30 to boil the 2 cups. So you could probably boil with an ounce of alcohol in this stove. Probably 3 cups of water would do an ounce. Again, just do the math for yourself, practice with it, play with it, learn what it'll do. You got a meal that only needs a little bit of water, hey, put a ½ ounce in there if that's what it's going to do for you. You can deal with it pretty well. Gets a little warm, but let it cool off. And with this stove, the little stoves, if you have a funnel that you carry with you, you can reclaim alcohol out of these. Because of the ports on the top, especially this top burner, it'll easily pour into a funnel and back into your fuel bottle. The side burners are a little bit tougher. The top burner though but I just try to learn what my stoves will do, and from there I just regulate how much alcohol I put in. And hey, if you don't put enough in and it goes out on you, just wait a few minutes, let it cool down. You hand, make sure it's not burning, load some more fuel and keep going. Just took you a little bit longer to cook your coffee or boil your water for your coffee or your food. Well, thanks for watching the video. I hope I gave you some information that will work for you, and thanks, and we'll see you later on another video. Bye.